program presented by Lucky Strike.
American.
In a cigarette, it's the tobacco that counts. And
LSMFT.
Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. Yes.
LSMFT.
Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. And fine tobacco means real deep down smoking enjoyment for you.
So smoke that smoke of fine tobacco, Lucky Strike.
American.
From Hollywood, Lucky Strike presents the Jack Paar program with songs by Trudy Irwin, the Page Cavanaugh Trio, Jerry Fielding in the orchestra, yours truly, High Aberback, and starring America's new young humorist, Jack Paar.
Thank you very much. Hello, and to those of you affected by the rent control bill, welcome to the great outdoors. Well, it's nice eviction weather we've been having, isn't it? Everyone's getting a notice to move. New York City just gave Brooklyn 24 hours to get out of town. Of course, thank you very much. Of course, veterans are right in the middle of the housing trouble, the veterans. You see, thousands of them are living in chicken coops, but Congress has the solution. They've just appropriated $10 million to build new houses for the homeless chickens. Thomas E. Dewey is in the news this week, too. He's taking a trip across the country, which he says is non-political. He says he's not shaking hands with anyone or kissing babies. However, when he arrived in Oklahoma City, a set of twins fell out of his mustache. Yes, stay after the broadcast. We'll work it out together. Yes, the 1948 election is beginning to make news. There are so many men throwing their hats into the presidential ring that Mr. Truman would have enough to go back to his old line of business. It's a sneaker, I know. From England came news that Princess Elizabeth is going to marry Philip Mountbatten. I feel sorry for Phil. What good will it do him to wear the pants in their castle when his wife, of course, wears the crown? That was nothing. That's all right. Here we go. We're now on page 3. Never mind. It was nothing, really, just a week's work, that's all. You know. I love you anyhow. Cesar Petrillo, head of the Musicians Union, is in the news this week, too. He might call a strike this winter, and I may lose the boys. If he does, Phil Spitalny is going to look silly waving a baton at 22 girls who are knitting. The solo number would be handled by Evelyn and her magic pressure cooker. And now, friends, before anything drastic happens, here is the Page Cavanaugh Trio. Page, Lloyd, and Benris. He's the one that keeps time. The boys are going to play with their hats on, just in case Petrillo makes a decision in the next 2 minutes. Fellas?
I wonder who's kissing her now. I wonder who's teaching her how. I wonder who's looking into her eyes. Breathing sighs, telling lies. I wonder who's buying the wine for lips that I used to call mine. I wonder if she ever tells him of me. I wonder who's kissing her now. I wonder who's kissing her now. Now?
Well, friends, all over the country, people still report seeing the flying discs. Of course, there are people who still haven't seen any of them. I guess they're waiting for the 1948 models to come out. I am not saying these flying discs don't really exist, but nobody living in Kansas City has seen them, and that's a dry state. Actually, the way the human mind works, people see just what they want to see. For example, a member of the Van Johnson fan club reported seeing a disc with freckles. I doubt that, personally, but... Now, today, in order to bring you up to date on the disc situation, we have arranged to get some first-hand reports from people who have actually seen them. Good evening, sir. What is your name?
My name is Harold Crumbney. My friends call me Crumb.
Well, your friends know you better than I do, I guess. What do you do for a living, Harold?
I work as a mechanic in a sardine factory.
A mechanic in a sardine factory?
Yeah, every 1,000 sardines, I change the oil.
I see. Would you mind moving back a little? You're standing between me and the electric fan. Now then, Harold, can you give our radio audience a description of the disc you saw?
Well, certainly. The length was, I would say, between... well, anyway, the color was sort of... it was darker than that. It was more of a... well, then the width, it ran anyway from... no, it was even wider.
Harold, how did you get all these details?
Simple, I marked them down.
Oh.
You see, I'm used to this. I see a lot of junk.
You've seen other things besides discs?
What are you talking? I've seen all kinds of phenomenons. The other day, for instance, I seen a sea serpent.
Well, a lot of people have seen sea serpents.
In their bathtubs? I'm in the tub, see? I turns on the hot water faucet, and out comes the sea serpent.
Out of the hot water faucet? You must have been amazed.
I sure was. He usually comes out of the cold water faucet.
Well, thank you, Harold Crumbney. It's been grand having you, and let's not do it again real soon.
Well, thank you. Hey, wait a minute. Ain't you going to give me a refrigerator?
I'm sorry we don't give away any refrigerators. This is an original-type show, you know.
Well, then, how about a year's supply of something free? Anything.
We're not allowed to give away anything on this show.
Oh, yeah? How would you like a good punch in the nose?
I'm sorry we're not allowed to accept anything either. Thank you and good night. And now, you saw one of the flying discs, madam.
Would I be here if I seen chopped liver?
I guess not. Would you mind telling us your name, please?
Clarice Shambles, Hillside 5413. If a man answers it's me, I got a sinus condition.
Now about these flying discs, Mrs. Shambles.
That's Miss.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How do you think I feel?
Now tell me, when did you witness this amazing sight?
Well, I'm sitting on the front porch last Saturday, about to shave my legs. I got 'em all lathered when... You see, all of a sudden, along comes a young man of the opposite sex. Hello, baby, he says to me, cool as you please. How would you like to go up on the roof and watch the flying discs? And so we go up to the roof.
What happened?
Nothing. The jerk shows me a flying disc.
Well, you haven't been of much help, but thanks anyway. Clarice Shambles, girl, nothing. And now you, sir, I understand you are a psychiatrist.
Yeah, that's correct. I am Dr. Heinrich Himmelstoss, known professionally as the Smiling Psychiatrist.
I'll remember that if I ever have a brain to trade in. Now, about these discs, Doctor.
Discs? Are you joking? I am a psychiatrist. This whole thing is a hallucination. I have studied the situation very carefully.
You've done some research?
Oh, yeah. First, I am looking through a telescope. Then I'm looking through a microscope. And then, for good measure, I am going to a burlesque.
And what were your conclusions?
The scientific explanation is mass hysteria induced by emotional insecurity leading to schizophrenic tendencies in the subconscious portion of the cerebellum. In other words, people is nuts.
Doctor, does that mean that people have too much dementia in their precox?
Precisely.
Well, there's just one thing I don't understand, Doctor. You say you spent time looking through a telescope, and yet you didn't see any discs.
Well, I'll tell you. I took my telescope up on the roof, and I looked around, and I did see something.
Then it might have been a disc.
I'll let you know. I got a date with her for next Tuesday night.
Lucky Strike presents The Man Who Knows. The independent tobacco expert who knows from his own experience at the auctions what kind of tobacco is bought by the makers of Lucky Strike.
At 57, American.
What kind of tobacco do the makers of Lucky Strike buy?
Lucky Strike presents The Man Who Knows. The Tobacco Auctioneer.
Mr. Dewey Huffines of Reedsville, North Carolina, has sold over 150 million pounds of tobacco. He recently said,
Season after season, I've seen the makers of Lucky Strike buy tobacco that's mild, ripe, and mellow. Fine tobacco that tastes good and smokes good. I've smoked Lucky's myself for 29 years.
yes, the man who knows. Experts like Mr. Huffines can see the makers of Lucky Strike consistently select and buy that fine, mild tobacco. Remember,
LSMFT.
Lucky Strike means fine tobacco, and fine tobacco means real, deep-down smoking enjoyment for you.
So smoke that smoke of fine tobacco, Lucky Strike. So round, so firm, so fully packed, so free and easy on the draw.
Well, friends, now that vacation time is here, visiting relatives are again in season. You've all had them. They usually drop in on you for the 4th of July weekend, and before you know it, they're helping you decorate your Christmas tree. All visiting relatives have one thing in common. They bring their children. You know what your relatives' children are? They're adults that come in a small, horrible size. As soon as they get to your house, they start right in, tear your rugs, wreck your furniture, break your dishes, set fire to your maid. And then their mother says, look at Junior, I wouldn't take anything in the world for him. She doesn't have to worry. She'll never get an offer. Yes, the visiting child is a public relative number one. Have you ever been left alone with one of them and tried to make conversation? What really goes on in your respective minds while you're being nice to each other? Shall we find out? Well, little Walter, my favorite nephew. You've certainly grown into a fine broth of a boy.
Fine broth. Too bad he hasn't got all his noodles.
Thanks, Uncle Jack, and you're looking swell, too.
This must be my uncle that died last year.
My, you're such a bright little fellow. Your mother tells me you're the most advanced pupil in your class.
Sure, he's the most advanced. The other kids in the class are only 6, and he's 12.
Yes, Uncle Jack, I have been getting good marks, and that's because I've been going to school every single day.
I hope they don't find that trunk I buried with the truant officer in it.
Well, that's wonderful. And what are you going to be when you grow up?
Does he have to grow up?
Well, Daddy wants me to be a doctor, and Mommy says I should be a lawyer. I'll meet him halfway and become a bookie.
Now, Walter, while you're here, I know you're going to have a good time. There's a little boy to play with up the street. Another little boy lives on the corner, and two little boys live right next door.
From the look in the kid's eye, I don't dare mention little girls.
That's super, Uncle Jack. I can't wait to meet those little boys. This is murder, no dames.
Walter, I knew you'd turn out to be a sweet little boy. You had to be. You see, before you were born, your mother read the greatest literature, went to the opera, and listened only to the finest symphony music.
Spike Jones must have snuck in there somewhere.
Uncle Jack, you've been so keen to me, I wish I could do something to pay you back. Maybe I ought to give him one of those chocolates with the Mickey Finn centers.
That's very nice. Now, you run upstairs and take a nap. I just wanted to have this little talk with you to make sure you and I are going to become real good friends.
That's right, Uncle Jack.
And now that we are good friends, aren't we, Walter?
Yes, Uncle Jack. Here, have one of my chocolates.
Now here's our lovely young singing star, Trudy Irwin, the one-girl soloist, accompanied by Jerry Fielding and the all-boy orchestra.
I believe in wishing well, and I also believe in a lot of things that daisy tells. I believe that a four-leaf clover brings lots of luck, lots of joy, lots of happiness. I believe those things. And when it's Christmas, I believe in Santa Claus. Why do I believe? I guess that I believe because I believe that dreams come true. If you wish for the dream by wishing well, don't tell the wish or you'll break the spell. It may sound naive, but that's what I believe. Or you'll break the spell. It may sound naive, but that's what I believe. Anything worthwhile believing, honey, that's what I believe.
Friends, the other day I tuned in one of those kiddie programs for children, you know. In just 15 minutes, 2 people were shot, 4 poisoned, 1 thrown over a cliff, and 2 were strangled. Then the announcer said, "Good night, kiddies, pleasant dreams." Another kiddie program I heard had a definite psychological twist. It was called Jack Armbuster, All-American Maniac. As a kid, Jack Armbuster started out hitting little girls. Then when he grew up and married, he would hit his wife. And he wasn't even faithful to her because he went around hitting other women, too. It's obvious that these days kids demand psychological motives in their stories. Does this mean that nursery rhymes and fairy tales will have to be rewritten? Is Mother Goose a dead duck? Take a simple nursery rhyme like Jack and Jill. How would it sound given a modern psychological treatment for the children of today? I can almost hear it now. The Strange Case of Jack and Jill.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Jack and Jill found at bottom of hill. Jill dead. Lacerations on body, also crown broken. Police investigating. Read all about it. Extra, extra.
Lieutenant, I've told you over and over I had nothing to do with my wife's death. It was an accident. Please, Lieutenant, let me go home.
You mean you'd leave me alone in this nasty police station? Now, look, friend, we both know you killed your wife. Why don't you confess? Then I can go home to bed, and you can go to the electric chair.
But why would I kill my wife? Everybody knew us as the ideal couple, Jack and Jill.
Why does any man kill his wife? For freedom, jealousy, money, or because she goes around singing Chibaba Chibaba all the time?
Lieutenant, since you're accusing me of murder, I demand advice of counsel. I insist on calling my lawyer Humpty Dumpty Ginsburg.
Forget the mouthpiece, Joker. I know you killed your wife, and I know just how you did it. All I need to clinch this case is the motive.
I'll never tell you my motive.
Ah, stepped right into that one, didn't you?
No, it's just that I get confused so easily. After all, I'm a new murderer.
That does it, kid. How will you have it, AC or DC?
I didn't do it, I tell you. I didn't do it.
Ah, come now. Tell me, sweetheart, ever hear of a dame called Little Miss Muffet?
Who told you about her?
Never mind. Allow me to read to you from a report I have here. May 19th. Jack seen in company of Little Miss Muffet at Mother Goose's Bar and Grill. According to a witness, Jack spent afternoon of June 1st in home of Little Miss Muffet, sitting with her on her tuffet. Had enough?
Doesn't mean a thing, I tell you. You still can't prove I murdered Jill.
Kid, let me wise you up. Little Miss Muffet is dynamite. You think you were the only one in her life? Dozens of guys ruin their lives for Little Miss Muffet.
You mean there were others who sat on her tuffet?
Others? How do you think Simple Simon got so simple? He's still bouncing around the padded cell.
If I'd only known this.
Well, you know it now, sucker.
And there's nothing left for me. All right, I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. I was happily married to Jill for 5 years. Then little Miss Muffet moved into the house next door. What a woman she was. I was drawn to her helplessly. Love engulfed us. We were like two flies caught in molasses. And I was the fly with the worried expression. One night I sneaked out of the house and went to see Miss Muffet. We sat there for hours eating her curds and whey. What a cook that woman was. I told her I couldn't live without her. Then I went home. Jill was waiting up for me, her hair done up in curlers, cold cream on her face. She'd taken off her eyelashes for the night. As I turned on the light, she blinked her stumps at me and said,
Jack, where have you been? It's almost 3 o'clock.
Why, darling, you know I always play poker with the boys Sunday night.
You don't know any boys and you can't play poker.
All right, then. I was out bowling with the girls.
Don't lie to me. You've been next door visiting that brazen Muffet hussy.
Well?
Jack, how can you do this to me? I've been a faithful wife. I've worked, I've slaved, I've kept house. And now you openly flaunt your love for this woman. You make me the laughing stock of the neighborhood. How can you do it? How can you? Don't just stand there. Say something.
What else is new?
Jack, you don't really love Miss Muffet. Stop this madness before it's too late.
I can't, Jill. This is the end. You must let me go.
Let you go? I shan't, do you hear? I shan't. I shan't. I shan't.
She stood there, shanting at me. I knew then I was through with Jill. There was something in my mind that made me fickle with women. The year before, it had been Little Bo Peep. I thought I thought I loved her, but I threw her over as soon as she lost her sheep. Now it was Miss Muffet, and Jill was in the way. I knew I had to kill her, but could I? After all, she was a human being and a woman. A rare combination. But I had to have Miss Muffet. I worked out a plan. The hill in back of the house, the well on top. If our plumbing was broken, we'd have to go up the hill to fetch a pail of water. I got a hammer and ran to the cellar. I'd broken the plumbing. My plan for murder was working. I felt strong, alive, wet. Then I called to Jill. Sweetly, I said, Oh, Jill, darling, the plumbing's broken. Let's go up the hill to fetch a pail of water. She fell for it. We started up the hill. We got to the top. I pushed her. She fell for it again. You know the rest, Lieutenant. After I pushed her down the hill, I came tumbling after to cover up. Tell me, will they send me to the chair?
All I can say, kid, if you own an Eversharp lifetime pen, you got an awful big refund coming.
You've got to understand, Lieutenant, it's not my fault. It goes back to my childhood. We were poor, and when I married Jill, we were still poor. All she had was an old burlap tuffet. Then little Miss Muffet came into my life. I couldn't resist her nylon tuffet.
Too bad. Now you got to pay.
Wait a minute. Give me a break, Lieutenant. You can't let them burn me.
All right, kid. If you haven't got the nerve, there's another way out. In back of this police station, there's a hill.
Yes?
Grab that bucket.
What are you going to do?
Kid, you and I are going up the hill to fetch a pail of water.
Jack Paar will be back in just a moment, but first...
Lucky Strike presents... The Man Who Knows. The Man Who Knows. The Tobacco Warehouseman.
Mr. Henry Snell, well-known warehouse owner of Lexington, Kentucky, not long ago said...
At auction after auction, I've seen the makers of Lucky Strike buy fine, mild, ripe tobacco.
The Man Who Knows. The Tobacco Buyer.
Top-notch tobacco buyer Charles Gunter of Mount Airy, North Carolina, recently stated...
I've seen the makers of Lucky Strike buy fine tobacco that's really tops in smoking quality. Smoked Lucky's myself for 29 years.
And so it goes with the Man Who Knows, the tobacco expert. Remember, fine tobacco is what counts in a cigarette, and...
LSMFT.
Lucky Strike means fine tobacco.
LSMFT.
Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco.
So for your own real deep-down smoking enjoyment, go that smoker. So packed on, so firm, so fully packed on, so firm, so easy on the draw.
In our cast today were Lionel Stander, Florence Halop, Conried, and Walter Tetley. Tune in next week to the Jack Paar Show with Trudy Irwin, the Page Cavanaugh Trio, Jerry Fielding in the orchestra, yours truly, High Aberback, and as our special guests, Robert Taft, Harold Stassen, Tom Dewey, General MacArthur, Henry Wallace, General Eisenhower, and Alf Landon.
Come early and pick your own candidate. Good night, everybody.
Don't forget, friends, for the tops in radio entertainment, set your dial to NBC Wednesday night for that thrilling newspaper drama, The Big Story. And on Saturday night, don't miss Your Hit Parade with Martha Tilton, the Pied Pipers, and Your Hit Parade special guest, Dick Haynes.
This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.